So what I've noticed in marketing operations is that it's really accelerated in the past 2 years, and it's mostly accelerated in smaller to medium companies. So bigger companies pretty much already have their way in set in stone, but most people are employed or contracted with smaller or medium-sized companies. So the first thing I would like to ask yourself, first of all, this could be a topic that can be on its own. So I narrowed it down to three big things. And the first thing is, how big is your company? So that might sound very generic when it's an umbrella like that, but it's very specific when you need to think ahead. So if you're at a startup and you're trying to grow to a medium-sized company, or maybe you're on the verge of that, you might want to look at companies that specify in that, because you know you're going to grow. So if you hire a company that helps you out for a smaller company, you need to think ahead of time in a year or two, or if you already have your quarters planned out, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, is it easy to transfer this to somewhere else, or do they have a program that helps you do that, because you're eventually going to grow out of it? So if you're shopping for something now, just remember that there's something in the future that you're going to either hire a contractor or another team to integrate all this information from one place to another. If you outgrow it, they might help you now, but try to think of about 1 or 2 years in the future. The second thing I'd like to talk about is get an opinion from your network. So, in a digital world, word of mouth is still the number one marketing technique. It's the most efficient. So, by the time you are shopping for tech for any size company, you pretty much have a base network. And if you don't, I would rearrange that. So LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. I still keep in contact with all my former coworkers, employees, and bosses on LinkedIn and meet new people as well. So in your network, you might want to find someone who works at a very similar company as you. Maybe they have the same product or service, or maybe they're the same size company. Maybe they target the same audience or someone similar. You might want to reach out to them and say, hey, I noticed that you use this at your company. Why did you do that, or how did that come to be? And then maybe they'll give you some insight. Now, having that said, this should not be a cold call. So a lot of people do their own branding and marketing for their own namesake, especially on LinkedIn, where they have like a huge following, and they might say, well, I like this tech, I like this tech stack. You should know them either personally or within the 1 to 2 degrees of through another person. So don't reach out to an influencer. Another reason for that, besides it being a cold call, is they might be paid. They might be endorsed by someone or have some type of compensation, even if it's not money. If Pepsi paid me, I would definitely say I like Pepsi more than Coca Cola, whether that is true or not. So don't go out to an influencer or someone with a big following. And I see this all the time. They may say they like this company and they really endorse this company, and then you'll see the company comment either on their thread or their post or whatnot. So don't go out to those people. Have someone in your network that you maybe haven't talked to a long time, or maybe you would like to catch up with them and ask them, why did they choose this product at this company? If it's very similar to yours, that makes sense to me. The third thing I'd like to talk about is, ask the company when you are talking to their sales development team or business development team, is what is their response time? So when you work at a smaller or medium-sized company, you're wearing a lot of hats, whereas you work at a bigger company, you're only doing that one thing, and you're usually on a bigger team. So the response time is something, if you don't know what is going on, especially if you're new to that tech stack, or if something goes haywire, you need to know what their response is and how they handle that. So, for example, bigger companies like Salesforce, HubSpot, I think the longest I've ever had to wait through their chat box, I think, was like 10 minutes. And I get it. They're a bigger company, so they have a bigger team. I think the longest anyone said they've had to wait, we had this discussion on LinkedIn with a few of people on my network. And I think the longest someone said was like just less than an hour. And that was like one time. So really see what their response team is. If the salesman doesn't know, that's a red flag. Either you have to go look it up yourself, or the salesman may be new, or they're a newer company and they just haven't gotten that ball rolling. You want to know what the response team is, because if you are learning a new product, you are learning mostly as you go. Very rarely is there like a certification or something like that for a smaller company that helps out smaller scales. So if something goes wrong, you need to hit up their IT or a chat box or some hotline. And if they don't know what to do, or if they don't have that set up, that doesn't really help you. It doesn't really make sense to pay a company to help you to do something and then they don't know how to do it. And then that's money lost. And I'm sure blood will be boiling because now you're losing business. And this even happens in the bigger picture. Like when AWS goes down, it makes international, if not national, headlines, because other companies felt that domino effect. Lots of big companies use AWS, like Lyft, the ride sharing service, for example. I know AWS went down a few weeks ago, and that was like the biggest thing that I saw. And it affected me too at Amazon. I just didn't know about it to the end of the workday when I saw it in the headlines. So smaller companies are the same way, but they don't make the national headlines. So you really need to know what their IT department is. I would also ask where their IT department is. Are they working remotely? Are they offshore? Are they in different countries in different time zones? Are they there 24/7? Some aren't. So I would also ask what uh, what that looks like for them on their side when things go bad, because you need that contingency plan, you need that backup. So that's also something I want to work in my tech stack is too, because if I have to wait for something, I can't really do the rest of my work or help out the rest of my team if I'm waiting on them, if they're shut down for an 8-hour workday or whatever. So that's something I would really penetrate into the salesman or the business sales development team that you are window shopping with. Um, Other than that, I didn't want to talk about smaller things like budgeting and this stuff like that, because I figured when you're already at that stage, you should already know those things. But shopping for something is a little trickier because you need something for your team. And so you also have to think that your team is going to grow and you're going to outgrow these tech stacks. So you always have to look to see uh, what is going to be in that growth. So you might want to, window shopping, as I call it, never stops unless you work at a big company. Most big companies have their own internal system anyway. So that is something I also want to share and implement. Is people think, oh, it's a one and done. I picked this tech stack. The company pays them. That we use this service for this, and then they just think they magically are done. No, if you're working at a smaller or medium company and you're working on growth marketing, you always are window shopping because you always want the contingency plan or the plan B, because because once you outgrow that, you need your contingency plan to supplement that so that you can keep growing, and then you might outperform what that can handle. And right now, I'd like to point out that marketing operations has really skyrocketed in the past 2 years, and I predict a lot more titles in the marketing operations realm. So there's going to be a lot more smaller companies that either just started up in the last year, or they're going to already in the next year in stealth mode or on the works as we speak right now. So there's already, in the past 6 months, there's already about 3 or 4 companies that I've never heard of that are already booming as well, because the marketing operations realm has been booming as well. So that makes sense to make a product or a service to supplement something that's new, right? Um, Looking at my notes here. So that was something that I would want in your tech stack, is to always be shopping and looking around. I don't think it's ever going to stop. And I think in the next year, I predict that it's really going to boom even more than it has in the past year and a half. So you're going to see even more companies. And that's why I emphasize the network so well.